From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
Good Wednesday morning. It's 5 o'clock. Welcome to Montana This Morning. I'm Victoria Hill. Thank you so much for starting your day with us. We kick off Wednesday's coverage with the latest on the pandemic. We're learning more about the coronavirus vaccine that can't come to our state soon enough. There were 8 new COVID-19 related deaths in Montana, including 2 right here in Yellowstone County. Yesterday, state health leaders announced they would begin distribution with Pfizer's vaccine on December 11th and hopes to have it available to the general public by the spring. It requires 2 doses and will likely be free to everyone, provided by the federal government. The biggest issue is the storage of Pfizer's vaccine. It needs to be kept at temperatures colder than minus 100 degrees. In Montana, medical staff has never dealt with a vaccine with these requirements, but experts say we're uniquely set up to do so.
Right now in the state of Montana, we have at least 6 or 7 known ultra cold storage sites, very nicely spread geographically around the state. And then we know that there's a few more that will be coming on in the next couple of weeks. And what I heard from the CDC the other day was that was actually very good. There are some states or territories that have 1 or 2 in their entire state.
When Moderna releases its vaccine, it won't require the extreme cold storage. Some say that could make it a better option for rural areas. U.S. Senator Steve Daines is calling on the CDC to ensure Montanans in rural communities get access to a safe and effective vaccine. He said he wants them to consider the unique challenges facing those in remote and rural communities in Montana who may have difficulty accessing vaccination services. You may remember Daines took part in Pfizer's vaccine trial and tested positive for the antibodies. He said he did it to build confidence and trust for Montanans wondering if they should take the vaccine. Now it's time to turn our attention to weather. Ed joins us here on the set with that. One day closer to Thanksgiving. What's going on outside?
Yeah, we've got temperatures that are still going to be very comfortable, above average in most cases. Now check out 39 in Billings. Keep in mind that 41 is the average high this time of the year, but we do have a westerly wind at about 18 miles an hour right now in Billings. Temperatures around the region are into the teens and 20s. You notice showers starting to move into western Montana, and that will play a part of our forecast by the time we start getting into the afternoon and evening hours. So we'll show you that in a little bit. Plus winds, how about gusting over 50 miles an hour around Livingston and the Big Timber area here this morning, making those breezy conditions around Billings, and those winds will become more widespread here as we start getting into the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll show you that as well. Temperatures today are going to warm up. We're mainly the 30s that we have on the map, 20s and 30s through northern Wyoming, the exceptions of the Bighorn Basin where we're into the teens. And as the readings warm up, we will pick up a chance of showers by later in the day. We'll talk more about that coming up in a few minutes.
All right. Thank you so much, Ed. I'll get back to the news.
Thanks.
Nationally, more than 2,000 Americans died from COVID-19 yesterday. Health officials are concerned the number is only going to get worse in the weeks after Thanksgiving, when many Americans will be gathering with family and friends. AAA expects up to 50 million Americans to travel for the holiday. Some are getting tested before seeing family and friends, but experts warn it can take days after an infection to register on a test. And the number of available hospital beds across the nation is shrinking. Some facilities have even pushed past their capacity. Right now, more than 88,000 people are hospitalized with COVID-19 in the U.S. CNN's Camila Bernal has more on what it's like to be one of those patients.
COVID-19. It's the disease keeping people apart.
This pandemic, I think, has robbed us of human interaction.
Especially those infected with the virus.
These patients with COVID are isolated in the hospital and they're alone, they don't have visitors, and they're scared.
One of the biggest fears severely ill COVID patients and their families have, not getting to say goodbye.
I took care of a woman who, after over a month in the ICU was recovering from COVID. And that should be a win. But we were trying to call her family every day to give them an update, and we couldn't get a hold of anyone. And then one day we found out it's because her husband had died of COVID and her daughter had died of COVID, all while she was in the hospital.
As hospitalizations skyrocket across the nation,
we are at a critical and very dangerous point in this pandemic.
the White House Coronavirus Task Force is making a desperate plea, calling for a significant behavior change of all Americans and warning if we don't,
you may not be able to go in and get your heart attack treated. I've heard hospitals not being able to provide care for pregnant women because they're filled with COVID beds. So that's the reality.
a reality that healthcare workers on the front lines say is looking grim at the moment.
Our morgue was full. I don't see that very often.
I'm Camila Bernal reporting.
Now back here in Montana, one day after resigning as U.S. Attorney, Kurt Alme is officially joining Governor-elect Greg Gianforte's administration as the state's next budget director. But before he leaves his current post, Alme is sharing some of the challenges his successor will face. He says during the pandemic, the jump in violent crime during the pandemic is alarming. In Missoula County, aggravated assaults are up more than 40%, and here in Yellowstone County, it's even worse. In September alone, there were 119 violent crimes. That includes murders, robberies, and aggravated assaults. In October, there were 109. Pre-COVID, the highest monthly total was 79 from the summer of 2019.
We can point to domestic violence. We know that domestic violence has increased 32% in Yellowstone County. And that usually happens when you have a natural disaster that forces people inside. And especially when, alcohol sales, I think we're up 50% in the first few months. That's never a good thing. And we know from Millennium Health that methamphetamine urinalysis positive test rates were up over almost 34% in the first few months of this pandemic in Montana, which means meth use was also up. And so meth and alcohol are, as we know, are triggers that are often involved in violent crime.
The added crime also means the county jail is full. More than 100 inmates are waiting to be transferred to the state prison, but a COVID-19 outbreak there is keeping them in the jail. Alme says with no room in the jail, getting dangerous people off the streets is incredibly difficult. In court news, a lawsuit that made national headlines ends in a major victory for the Montana ACLU. They sued the Border Patrol office in Havre after an agent detained and questioned 2 women for speaking Spanish. Customs and Border Patrol has agreed to pay the 2 women an undisclosed amount of money. The ACLU says this case uncovered a history of racial profiling against Hispanics. One piece of evidence was a now deleted Facebook group in which some officers joked about the deaths of migrants.
Settling the case is good. It obviously sends a message that this kind of conduct won't be tolerated and that government agencies have to be held accountable. But at the same time, there's more work to do.
The Border Patrol released a statement that said the outcome is, quote, in no way intended to be and should not be construed as an admission of liability or faults. In Butte, a former police detective is suing the department, claiming she was discriminated against and harassed for being a woman. Rhonda Staton was an 18-year vet with Butte Police. She says during her tenure, she found tampons and inappropriate material left in her mailbox, and a sexually explicit calendar was hung on her door. Staton also claims she was routinely yelled at and disrespected in front of her coworkers. According to the lawsuit, she reported these incidents at least 6 times, but was ignored. Officials with Butte Police declined to comment on the case. Now we go to Kalispell, where a Columbia Falls man is facing 10 years in prison after being found guilty of removing a 10 Commandment monument from the courthouse lawn. Anthony Weimer will be sentenced in January for felony criminal mischief. Back in June, he wrapped chains around the monument and dragged it into the street. He was arrested shortly after. Police say Weimer has no affiliation with any protest or demonstration groups in Flathead County. Continuing our coverage, we now know the name of the 17-year-old boy who was killed in a car crash near Busby over the weekend after the vehicle he was driving struck a horse. Officials say Kean Ontiveros from Lame Deer died from blunt force trauma. The accident happened Saturday night just after 9 o'clock on Highway 212. The Montana Highway Patrol says speed is considered a factor in the crash. Also making headlines this morning, Yellowstone National Park set a new visitation record for the month of October. More than 360,000 people visited the park last month. That's an increase of 110% from the year before. The previous record was set back in 2015 with 252,000 visitors. Still, for the year as a whole, visits are down 6%. And before we take a break, last month we reported a tragic story of an 18-year-old Missoula girl who drowned in a scuba diving accident in Glacier National Park. Today, she's being remembered as a fearless, compassionate person with a desire for adventure. MTN's Jill Valley reports.
Linnea Rose Mills, named after the flower that grows abundantly in Montana. During her 18 years on this earth, this young woman developed a worldview much bigger than just the big sky.
Linnea had a non-linear lifestyle. Like she didn't really care about what she was supposed to do or what other people did. She did things that she wanted to enjoy.
Her family lived for a time halfway around the world in Bhutan. She was just a child then, but right now, thousands of butter lights burn in honor of her.
You know, she was our Buddha baby, this peaceful child, like this. People remember her because she was this kind of little shiny light.
My name is Linnea.
Her life was filled with friends and family. She was a lifeguard for Missoula's Parks and Rec. She played on the Hellgate High golf team. She worked for the Missoula Boys and Girls Club every Friday and was about to start a new job in a local group home. She recently embarked on a 7,000-mile road trip with just her dog. Not surprising she'd take on that adventure. By the age of 15, she was already a certified scuba diver and explored the Great Barrier Reef. She had a passion for diving. But November 1st, while in an advanced scuba diving course at Lake McDonald in Glacier Park, something went wrong, and she drowned. While the family waits for an investigation to detail what happened, they're simply remembering Linnea.
On November 1st, she died doing something that she truly loved doing, and I think that if there's one way you can think of Linnea, it's that she just wanted to help others and spend her life exploring and doing things she loved.
We knew that we had to let her spread her wings. She's always been a very safe, careful, thoughtful person. She's loved adventure. That was the kind of person she wanted to be and we wanted her to be.
That's what she did. She found like her strengths and she figured it out. And she was so excited about what's next. You know, what I could say is she was doing what she loved. I mean, I will say that. There's no doubt she was pursuing every passion.
The family has started the Linnea Rose Mills Memorial Fund. Her brother Nick is the administrator with her close friends as advisors. They plan to use the money for things Linnea would want, for people in need, for troubled or suicidal youth. Instead of thinking what could have been, her family remembers what was.
In a way, I've come to peace with the fact that her life was going to be 18 years, and that's a tough one for a mother, you know.
In Missoula, Jill Valley, MTN News.
The Mills family says the investigation into Linnea's death is ongoing, and they are grateful to the National Park Service for taking such a careful and considerate approach. You can send donations to the Linnea Rose Mills Memorial Fund to P.O. Box 7555, Missoula, Montana, zip code 59807.